Divorced people of Reddit, when did you know it was over? Serious. We stopped sleeping together in the same bed. We both knew it was over but kept things on cruise control for a couple years because of our child. We were like two ships passing in the night, as they say. We both knew it but ignored it for a while. Then one day we sat and talked and agreed we should get a divorce. It was 100% amicable. Now she and my son live about 2 miles from me. I see him every single day. And she and I get along better than we ever did as a married couple. We laugh, eat dinner together as a family, play games in the backyard, etc. Company parenting for us is much more successful than staying married. There is no bad blood or arguments anymore. It was weird. I was sitting on the couch, and she was in the recliner. I looked at her, and it was like I didn't even know her. I thought, I don't like you and I wouldn't even date you now. We just grew apart. I said, do you want to break up? She replied, I thought you'd never ask. Yep, it's been over for a while. It was amicable, and we went our separate ways. No hard feelings, it was just done. I've said this on Reddit before. It's really hard to separate the process of divorce from the outcome. Many people want the outcome, but are terrified of the process. And rightfully so. It can suck. If you could snap your fingers, and it would magically be a year from now, with the divorce over, would you do so? If yes, you're ready and the marriage is over. Sometimes, it's guilt that keeps people from making the final step. They don't want to be the bad guy, don't want to hurt someone that they used to, or maybe still do. Love. D. So I asked them, if your partner came home today and said they were in love with someone else and wanted a divorce, what would you feel? If you'd be relieved that they were the ones who said it first. You're ready. I used to daydream about my wife telling me she'd fallen in love with someone else, so we could start the process without me being the bad guy. It didn't happen that way, but that's how I knew I was ready. When I realized I was more at peace when he wasn't around. I was calmer, less anxious, and smiling more. Also, when I realized I would smother my smiles or hide happy news so he wouldn't have a chance to ruin whatever I was enjoying. The moment you don't give a F about whether your partner is happy, sad, angry or hurt, that's when you know. When I no longer wanted him to touch me, kiss me, look at me, when the sound of his voice and the way he walked and every little thing about him annoyed me. We talked about divorce prior to it happening and we tried working it out. But the way I was feeling never changed. It wasn't fair to him to keep trying. First I started working late more and more. It finally got to a stage where I would get home and linger in the car working up the courage, will, to get out. When I found myself crying in the garage because I couldn't face another explosive tantrum, I knew we were done. I was terrified of calling the game. But an incident where he was shaking and screaming at our infant son was the final pebble that started the landslide. When I recognized that he was truly trying to gaslight me, but was too stupid to realize that I could still read the emails in my sent file, he replied to an email I had sent, editing my original message to make me sound like a raging bee. At that point I knew there was no hope and started my escape plan. I found nude pictures of our so-called friends on his computer. The worst part? It was all in a folder alongside the pictures I had sent him. He literally had a collection going. It made me sick. He had just proposed to me 3 months earlier and we had a son that was 2 years old. My ex-husband rolled over in bed and told me he hated me. We'd been fighting earlier that day and he'd hit me, but asked my forgiveness and I granted it, telling him it was his last chance. We'd made up and moved on. Or so I thought. Apparently, He felt the need to tell me he hated me as I was trying to fall asleep that night. Once he told me he hated me, I realized there was no sense in trying anymore. After I got home from work the next afternoon, I threw him out of the house and contacted a lawyer. He told me he'd never sign any divorce documents and would force me to stay married to him forever. But that's not how divorce works, thankfully. When I found out that my husband was cheating on me on my birthday, no less than 4 months after we had gotten married, he tried to make it up to me, but every time he texted, called, or I saw him, I just got angry. After my son was born, we were at my brother's house attending a birthday party, sitting on opposite sides of the room because we had just gotten into a fight in the car on the way over there. At one point I looked over at her and thought, I would be so much more happy if I was just single again. This was after a couple of years of both of us being miserable. That was the moment I knew. Remarried now, 17 years, and couldn't be happier. Ending that marriage was one of the best decisions I ever made. When she told me she didn't want to be with me anymore less than 2 days after I was released from the hospital after a widowmaker heart attack, when she put her ring on the coffee table and stormed off to let me think about things, I pretended to care until she left the house, then turned on the old PlayStation. I left her a month later. My ex-wife and I had a litany of issues that needed to be resolved. I asked her once to take a couple days to compile a list of what she would like me to change and how she would like to see our relationship go, and I said I would do the same. I spent a lot of time and effort into compiling a list of things that I would like to see change in our relationship in order for us to grow. My list was very respectful and I didn't blame her for anything. On the night we were supposed to share our lists, when I asked her, she opened a magazine article that said something along the lines of, "What makes a perfect man?" from one of those trashy magazines. She pointed and said, "This." That's when I knew that it was over. No thought or effort in the list at all. When I would have intrusive thoughts hoping he'd get in a car wreck and die on his way home from work. I didn't want him to die. To be clear, I just wanted out. And that seemed so much easier than the mess of divorce. I don't know if that makes sense. But it was a complicated emotion. My ex thought I was working out of town. She had been having an affair for about 3 months and totally thought I didn't know, and she had me buffaloed. This was way back before cell phones. But she had been call forwarding our phone to her new boyfriend's number, so when I called her I would think I was reaching her at our apartment. I came home about 10 p.m. one evening and she wasn't home. I called her boyfriend's number and she answered the phone. I asked her what she was doing and she told me she just climbed into bed for the night. I asked her whose bed she climbed into. There was a long pause. I told her I knew what she was doing and where she was. The last thing I said to her was that I was leaving my wedding ring on the nightstand on her side of the bed. That was over 40 years ago. Been married to a wonderful woman for a very long time now. All is good. Woke up one morning and I didn't feel married anymore. That was it. Walked in on her and another dude. I knew then things weren't great, but still didn't deserve that. Looking back on it later, I realized mistakes on both our parts. I think we both grew. I hated her for a while. We had a daughter together and hate is exhausting. Hate turned to indifference. Time heals and we have been friendly for years. We didn't fight over anything and divorce went smoothly. Spent about $600. There are pros and cons between ripping the band-aid and slowly peeling it off. Ripping it off was a lot of pain at one time but shortened the misery. I think anyway. That was one of the worst nights of my life though. Don't cheat. Messes people up. Took a while to heal. The strongest of steel is forged in the dumpster fire.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.